Welcome. So, in today's episode, we are going to discuss about the unified approach. The name suggests that unified approach is combining two different methodologies in a software engineering, or we are going to combining two types of things together, i.e., the technologies with the software development process. In this episode, we have to discuss the concept of unified approach. Don't forget that, as usual, please subscribe, share, like, and put your comment for this YouTube channel if you need more about the software engineering. Let's go through. Unified approach is simply means that it is the establishment of a unitary framework by unifying the unified modeling language with the software development process. So this is what we say as the unified approach. In this context, we have to combine these two, or there is a modeling. Yeah, there is a modeling. See, there is a modeling plus there is a software process. So these two can be a model, a unified approach. Yeah, a unified approach. Or whereas in a unified approach, the main motivation is here to combine the best practices, processes, methodologies, and guidelines along with the UML notations and diagrams. So don't forget that, or keep in your mind, UML is a standard, a convention for software engineers or system developers to model the software before constructed. So this is the motivation behind the unified approach. In the unified approach, there are different kinds of process or concepts here. The first concept that we have to discuss is the use case driven development. When you say the use case driven development, we have to understand the functions, the service of, or the intended services of the software product. Yeah, or there are different kinds of use cases. So we have to develop this case, we have to identify the use cases, we have to refine these cases. So this is what we call the use case driven. Keep in your mind, every use cases are originate from the functional requirements. So therefore, one of the process, the concept is already use case driven development. The other concepts that we have to discuss in a unified approach is object oriented analysis. So in object oriented analysis, we are going to build the analysis model. So the analysis model again will have the object model, yeah, the object model, the functional model, and the dynamic model. So the functional model is related with the use case driven development. So the functional model represents what the functions of the software looks like. The object model will represent the structures of the software or the system, and the dynamic model will show the behaviors of every system. So we have to conduct the object analysis here. The other thing, object oriented designing. Don't forget that during software life cycle development, or during the software process discussion in the previous episode, we were saying software has a designing part that we call it software design. In a software design, what we have to do is identifying the structure of the system, what kinds of relationship between them, the different structures, what are the components, how the system interface with the other, and so on. We also design the algorithms. So in object-oriented design, we are going to perform settings using object orientation concept. So in the unified approach, there is always incremental development and prototyping. Prototyping already, there is a series of prototyping. For example, we have prototype 1. So we will increment this to prototype 2. We will increment this to prototype 3. You see, there is up to what? Prototype n. So each prototype is already incremental version of the previous. For example, prototype 2 is an incremental version of this. Prototype of 3 is incremental versions of prototype 2. The same is true. Prototype n is an incremental version of prototype n minus 1. So prototyping is the fundamental. At the same time, an incremental software development approach is followed here. The other thing, there is testing always. So testing is already continuous testing is applicable here. When say a test, continuous testing, every products, every step is test over and over again. The algorithm technology in the means that we are going to implement here the unified modeling language, the layered approach, the repository for object-oriented system development patterns and frameworks, component-based development. We'll see each one by one. When you say the object-oriented analysis, we mean that we have to perform the following tasks. One, identifying the actors. Actor is a person or a user or a role which going to operate or initiate some functionalities of the system. So that's an actor. We're going to identify who the actor is, who the user of the systems are. So we have to do this. The other thing, in object-oriented analysis, we are going to develop a simple business process model using activity diagram. So activity is just a kind of process, just a kind of or steps of computational process. So we have to represent those computational process in a diagram. We can do this in object-oriented analysis. The other thing also, develop the use case. So this is a use case driven approach. We have to follow the use case driven development. So we have to identify every use case from the functional requirements. So we are going to represent those use case interactions inside and outside the system. So there is also the use case development here. The other thing, what you have to do in object-oriented analysis, there is an interaction diagram. For example, one object will interact with the another object. So here, maybe this object may send this for a message, maybe this will be reply, and vice versa. This is what we call an object interaction. So the object interaction will have a sequence. The objects also collaborating each other in a certain system. So this collaboration and interaction must be designed at object-oriented analysis stage. So not only designing the interactions, we are also identified the classes. So as you know, the meaning of the class, what the class is. Here in object orientation, the class of the system or the class of the development system or different classes will be identified from the business domain. So it is better to understand the class from the business domain. Or class designing, here it has three stages. Class designing at domain level, simply identifying the name of the classes from the business object. We are going to perform object-oriented analysis. Class diagram level or class diagram at object-oriented analysis. That means the name of or the attribute of the class will be added here. So object-oriented analysis has such a kind of meaning. The other one, in object-oriented development or designing, so we are going to do the following. Here, most of the time, in object-oriented designing or in a software designing, we have to know the structures of the system, the interaction between the system. what kinds of algorithm can be employed for each component, or what kinds of algorithm will be designed for those particular systems. So we have to do this. An object-oriented process, it consists of designing the classes, their attributes, methods and associations, structure, protocol, and apply design algorithms. For example, I have a class a student which is identified previously in object-oriented analysis. So this is a student class. So I have to identify the attributes of the student, ID, name, yeah, and so on. See, so we have the method operations. Let's say gets a mark. You can design simply get mark. See, and again we'll have another classes here that is called department. Department. So it has depth ID, depth name. So this class will relate with this. Here we have what the relation between the class and the student. So in object-oriented designing, we have to design such kinds of relationships and attributes, classes, and so on. The other thing, we have to design the access layer. Inside the access layer, there is a place where the actual data resides on. Yeah, there is the actual data resides on. So we have to design how we are going to after access those particular data. What kinds of architecture will be employed? So we have to say something about that. Designing the prototype in the user interface, user satisfaction and user task based on the usage of the use case are already designed here. The other thing, iterative and refine design. Design is not an overnight task. It is iterate over and over again, or it will be again refined. So at the very beginning, we will design a pool class diagram or and so on, or a pool relationship. But like when we refine and iterate, we have to get the big picture. So this is what we call object-oriented designing mean. An iterative development is so there is incremental at the same time there is iterative or continuous testing. Iteration means this is a looping until we are going to get or reach with the customer satisfaction level. When the customer satisfied, so the development will be stopped immediately. So development must be iterate and reiterate until you are satisfied with the system. So you are satisfied. When we satisfy, the customer also confirms that they are satisfied. Repeat the entire process, reworking and design the process on the prototyping and retesting. So here we can do or we can develop again and again to refine something, to confirm the software with the system specification and the system's user or the users. So iterative development is we can perform the software development over and over again until what? Until we meet the system specification and the customer's interest. So therefore, use case usability testing then again and again. The other thing, in a unified approach, it's better to design the repository. Rep- Repository means a central place for data storage. Yeah, in a modern business, best practice is sharing the way to ensure that the solution to process and organize problems. Best practice sharing eliminates duplication of the problem solving. The idea promoted here is to create repository. Repository is just is the central data storage. So we have to design how the data will be stored in a certain software. When you design a software, when you develop a software, there is a central repository. This allows the maximum use of previous experience in previous defined objects, patterns, frameworks, or user interfaces. Everything from the original user request to maintain of the project as go to the production should keep in repository. So repository simply is a page where it is a place where something is stored. So we have to design that. For example, here we have the data storage. Yeah, here we have the data storage. So centrally the data is stored here. Yeah, this is repository. Yeah, this is repository. So it's a place where the data is centrally stored. So everything access, just like as every workstation access data from here repository. So we have to design everything. We have to know about the repositories or where the data is realized or where is the central data storage place for each component and designing also. The other thing, the layered approach. So every software access through the architecture. Most software development tools are two-layered architectures, interface and data, but some other software are beyond that. So the function of the interface from the function of the business picture to isolate each other. So the layered approach shows that how each object can be accessed by the user. Sometimes it may be two-layer client-server architecture. Sometimes there will be three-tier, like there is a client, there is a web server, there is a database server. So this is a three-layered approach or three-tier approach. Maybe it could be a four-layer and so on. So layered approach must be designed in the software engineering as a unified approach. There are three layers approach. These are the user interface layers, business layers, and access layers. So here we have the user interface layer. Yeah, here we have the business layer. Here we have the access layer. In this access layer, actually the data is resides here. Yeah, the actual data of the business object. So in the business layer, there is what? There is objects. So there is objects from the business domain. Here, the business objects represented here. The other thing in view layer, there are users to view, to interact with the business object to access the data. Yeah, to access it. So this is a three-layered approach. So the three-layer approach is depicted just like this. So let's say something about this. So the three-layer approach will have here, there is the view layer. So the data is actually inside the screen. So the user wants to access the data from here. So having this in mind, the view layer will be designed like this, the business layer designed like this. So the view layer contains all objects of the that represents the business, shows the object interact to accomplish business process performance. This object should be not responsible for the drawing, the displaying details, the data access details. Only it shows the objects of the business. The second layer is already the view layer. So the view layer, the user will interact with the business system. So they have to view the system objects through the view layer or the interface layer. The interface layer consists of objects which the user interact as well as object needs to manage or control the interface. The user interface layer, also called the view layer. This typically is responsible for two major aspects of application: the alerting, responding to users' interaction, displaying business objects. The other thing is the access layer. The access layer contains objects that now communicate with the place where data actually resides. This layer is actually where the data resides, where it's be a relational database, a mainframe, or any kinds of files. Regardless of where the data actually resides, the access layer has two major responsibilities. One, it will translate the query requested by the user, or it translates requests. And second, it will translate the result from the access layer. In short, in layered approach, we have to design at least the three layers. For example, let's take email or Gmail. How do you log into the email? For example, you have to use the Google interface. You have to insert your email, your password. Then you have then after clicking the login, your data and objects will be accessed. You are considered your username, user ID will create a business object. You are an object at Google. From that, you are a business object for for Google company. So when you log in into the system, immediately your credentials leads to that you are identifying an object in the Google server. Then, having identifying your object from that, there is a related data which is resides on Google server, yeah, on Google remote server related with your username and password. So you can retrieve those particular data from the Google, like the inboxes, the sent items, and so you can retrieve. So there is a serial approach or a serial approach: the view layer, the access layer, and the business layer. So this is a little bit about